Hello and welcome to another edition of No Lights Paranormal, where three nerdy paranormal investigators sit down and discuss spooky stories from the web. My name is Joe. I am the lead investigator.
My name is Teresa, and I am your long-winded researcher.
All right.
It's accurate.
Accurate. And my name is Alex. I am the equipment setter-upper and the paranormal Baba Yaga enthusiast of the group. I don't know what the hell I was talking about there.
You rolled with it. It was nice.
I rolled with it.
It worked, yeah. It worked out.
But,
Blah, blah, blah.
yeah, back. Wow.
I had a 44 moment. Sorry.
Yeah, I just had one too. So anyways, we're back on track now. Good evening. Any announcements to get out of the way? Because we're tongue-tied.
So we have very, very few announcements. There's really, honestly, everything that I said was going on last week is still going on.
Yeah.
All of the weekend adventures.
Guided hunts.
Yes, all of those things are still going on all through the summer. Every weekend, Mansfield Reformatory has got something going on, or there's all kinds of good stuff going on. So get out there, have fun. We have actually picked a date of August the 18th, which is in fact a Sunday evening, that we will be going back up to Madison for an overnight investigation. Again, thank you so very much for the owners, who are just incredibly amazing at being flexible with their scheduling. You guys rock.
Stellar
Otherwise,
people.
no. No, I'm good.
All right. So that concludes the announcements.
Short, quick, simple. I like it.
Which means her story's got to be really long.
Ridiculous.
Saving time for something else.
All right. So, as again, apologize for last week's roundtable. We know it went a little bit longer. We'll probably won't be going that long this time. But again, thank you for staying with us. And we see you, Aruba.
Aruba, Jamaica.
What we're really trying to say is we see you, Noosley, who listened to 2 episodes in Aruba. Right. That's right. I'm an Instagram stalker.
But you know what? If she even turned one person from Aruba onto the podcast, she has done her job.
Right. So,
I also see the guys over in Russia and Germany who are consistently listening.
Well, I still haven't gotten emails from guys. I want to hear from you, or girls. I don't know which. I want to hear from you. Say hello. Send me an email. nolightsparanormal@gmail.com.
Either way, I'm here for it.
yeah, all right.
So,
Sorry, I have a dog.
tonight,
Sorry,
we talk about Delaware.
Delaware.
Hi, I'm in Delaware.
What's up, Delaware?
Yes, sorry, I had to get rid of the dog. Yes, we are in Delaware this evening. Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Like, there was a lot more there than what I thought.
It felt like it was going to be one of those, like, stale places. That's why I'm like, hey, yeah, we've got all these places that have hype around them, like the desert and Alaska and this and that. I'm like, let's go with one that's probably going to surprise us.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, because I found my story right away, and I'm like, ooh, that's juicy. I'm going with that. And then I didn't look for a while, and I was like, just let me find out what else is there. And yeah, pleasantly surprised. Delaware, you're not all right, but you're cool.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Did you know that Delaware's nickname is the first state?
Well, yeah, it was.
Well, yeah, it was 1787.
Didn't need to
Literally,
research that.
quite literally the first state. But they inherited that as a nickname too. You know how, like, the heart of it all, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
The show me state. I could continue. Yeah, point is they're the first state. So there wasn't really a whole lot of creativity in their nickname.
I feel like they just picked it, and, like, when you're that old, like, it's hard to argue.
Yeah, you're just like, whatever.
Like, who's going to argue with you? Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania down there, like, ooh, you're the first. Ooh.
Their flower, their state flower is the peach blossom, which is actually really pretty.
No. Well, I mean, it's flower.
Mhm.
Well, some flowers aren't all that pretty. So,
Well, this is the peach flower. The peach blossom.
okay. I was just making a general statement, but
The peach blossom?
The peach blossom.
I would think that would be in, like, Georgia.
yeah. Southern
Right. Peach blossoms look very, very much like cherry blossom. So pink, pretty, small. Yeah, very
Flower.
pretty. Very pretty flower.
And that concludes this lesson in flowerism.
That's right.
Flowers.
Botany? Is that it?
Botany.
Botany. Yep, there you go.
I was trying to think of it. I was like, wait, what is the... All right, hold on.
It's our
I got
botany
it.
lesson for the
Makes you an expert in namiology.
day.
Right, there you go.
And
Nerds.
for those
Yeah.
of you who got that reference, I will send you something fun.
You're welcome.
Email us.
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into it, guys, because I'm putting on my glasses.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Us old folks got to be able to read the notes we wrote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, who's going first this time?
I'm not even sure who went last time.
I believe I went first because I remember saying that I wasn't ready for it, but I was ready for it.
But then you just went, right? I believe it's been a really long time since I went first.
Okay.
Well, we got 20 minutes.
Take off your glasses, Joe.
So,
Not going to be needing those.
so I went with John Dickinson Plantation, also called Poplar Hall. Poplar Hall was the original name of the home.
Way to grab the low-hanging fruit.
I did grab the low hanging
She's like
fruit.
5'1".
It was, yeah,
true.
I have to, come on now. I need a step ladder for anything bigger than that. So I went with a very chronological kind of order because this is a really interesting place. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Mr. John Dickinson himself. He was born in Talbot County, Maryland on November 2nd of 1732. His father was actually a very wealthy plantation owner. The plantation that he owned originally produced tobacco, but in sort of the middle 1700s, tobacco kind of took a bit of a dump stat. So they switched over to grain, which worked very, very well. Extremely, extremely prosperous. He had a 13,000 acre plantation, and he commissioned Poplar Hall, the house there, to be built shortly after John's birth. It was finished in December of 1739, and the family moved in 1740. The Dickinson family moved into the mansion, which is located in Kent County, Delaware. I did forget to mention his dad was actually a famous guy as well. He was a judge. His name was Samuel Dickinson. So he was a judge in the state of Delaware. The original structure was a grand Gregorian mansion. John spent his formative years at Poplar Hall forming strong connections with the environment while learning his father's trade in farming grain. In addition, John spent time with his tutor, who fueled his interest in studying ancient languages, classical scholars, philosophers, and the more serious writers. In December of 1753, at age 21, John left for London. He wanted to study law at the Middle Temple Inns of Court in England. Returning to America in 1757, he established his very own law practice in Philadelphia. And by October of 1759, he was elected to the Delaware Assembly, marking the beginning of his political career. Throughout the 1760s, John appeared as a prominent figure, serving in both the Delaware and Pennsylvania assemblies and gaining renown for his eloquent writings, including the influential Letters from a Pennsylvania Farmer, published anonymously December 1767. Ended up being a big deal. As tension with Britain escalated, Dickinson played pivotal roles in colonial politics, chairing committees and drafting critical documents like the Olive Branch Petition in 1775, which sought reconciliation with Britain. During the American Revolution, he served in various capacities, including as a private in the Delaware militia during the Battle of Brandywine in 1777. His commitment to liberty was tempered only by his own ownership of enslaved individuals, which, during that time was a big issue. So, after the Revolutionary War, Dickinson continued his public service, including he actually was the man who drafted the Articles of Confederation. We all know what that is, and if you don't, well, you know.
Did not pay attention to history class.
That's right.
I did. So
Right. He served terms as both the president of Delaware and the president of Pennsylvania, which, at that time they had little tiny presidents rather than one giant president. His efforts extended to education, philanthropy, including the establishment of the Dickinson College in 1784, which still stands and is incredibly renowned today. In later years, John remained active in political discourse, advocating for the Constitution and penning the Fabius Letters in defense of the new government after the Constitution. Poplar Hall was home at one time to as many as 59 slaves. They included men, women, and children, although John did actually have a habit of purchasing some of the slaves from his brother that would keep the slave families together, mothers, fathers, and children. Work performed on Dickinson properties included growing crops, digging ditches, mending fences and buildings, spinning flax and wool, and odd jobs. In 1776, the Quakers in the Philadelphia area made it extremely well known that holding humans in bondage was an unacceptable practice. And it was very, very strongly recommended that all Quakers set their slaves free. That didn't happen. Not for John, anyway. But as time went on, things happened in John's life that inevitably will happen to all people, if you wait long enough. Tragedy struck. So in 1781, mind you, this was after it was, highly recommended that slaves be set free. Loyalists attacked the mansion. Fire and brimstone and all that good happy stuff they caused some serious nasty damage to the outside of the mansion. So because of this, and then of course he was getting crazy pressure from the government, he did actually go ahead and unconditionally release all of the remaining slaves on his property. So several years after he was asked to do so, he finally did. 5.5 years actually. In July of 1803, John's wife, Mary Norris, passed away. She did, in fact, pass away at Poplar Hall. Another tragedy struck March 3rd of 1804 when a massive fire completely destroyed the interior of the mansion to the point that it almost wasn't even salvageable. It was later restored. John moved back in and lived there until he passed away February 14th of 1808. In September of 1952, so many years ahead, the mansion and 12 of its acres were donated to the state of Delaware by the National Historic of Colonial Dames, and the state of Delaware becoming the first designated historic landmark in the state as of January of 1961. Now, really cool shit. They released all kinds of science and government and you name it, and archaeologists actually discovered an African burial ground on the property that records indicate that this is the resting place of more than 400 enslaved people who lived and died on the plantation. Unfortunately, the lack of grave markers prevents us from being able to actually name individuals. While the building itself is a magnificent mansion that tells so much history simply by standing after all these years, there is a haunting presence still attached to Poplar Hall. Much like how he treasured his home in life, John Dickinson is said to still occupy the mansion, occasionally showing himself to employees and guests alike, and seemingly continuing his lifelong love of writing. The most common paranormal activity is the unmistakable sound of a quill scratching on parchment in John's old study. Full-bodied apparitions of Dickinson, identified by his distinctive 1700s clothing and confident manner of carrying himself, have been seen all over plantation grounds, most often very near to Poplar Hall. Strange inconsistencies appear in photos taken at the National Historic Monument, such as orbs of light or white mist with no earthly explanation. Often the daybed in his study will be left in pristine condition, and then when the employees come back into the room, the bed will be in disarray, as if the founding father had taken himself a daytime nap, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Strange sounds have been reported at the mansion. Knocking sounds reported throughout the mansion and its properties, and the sound of furniture being moved slightly across floors. One employee says that once they placed the furniture as close to the way it was arranged during John's life, it finally began to stay in its position, and ghostly hands didn't feel the need to move it around too much.
We're good.
So John was an intelligent and soft-spoken man in life, and it seems like he remains exactly the same in the afterlife. So nothing malicious or crazy, just, at a particular, wants his chair where he wants his chair, wants his desk where he wants his desk, that kind of thing.
Totally feel that.
So he kind of wanders around and writes his letters. So that is the super fun story of Poplar Hall.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh, we're going to go short and sweet.
Holy shit. I was not prepared for it to be that short.
That's what we call in the biz is a curveball.
Not all of my stories are long-winded. Sometimes they're about nice ghosts who just,
4th of July.
need their story told. And I apologize if you heard that. My neighbors, almost every single day of the year, they are setting off big, huge fireworks. And even though it is only the 2nd of July upon today's recording, they've been setting off fireworks for days.
They definitely do a solid week before and week after.
Oh, yeah, for literally every holiday. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. And for those of you listening in the States, please be careful with the fireworks.
Yes, please.
On cue.
Yeah, don't be sticking your face over any pipes you didn't think went off. And please watch your pets, because fireworks can be really, really scary for pets. So make sure that they're away from the noise and, can't run away and be scared and all that stuff.
Also, we have the blessing. Ours are not scared of fireworks
Not even
whatsoever.
remotely. And that includes my brand new 5-month-old puppy. He don't give a shit.
Noise.
Yeah, he's like,
Nope.
whatever.
Every once in a while, when he sees the light, he'll look. He'll be like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, he kind of watches the fireworks. It's kind of cute.
Yeah, so if you hear explosions in the background, we're not in the middle of a war. We're not playing WoW.
No, not at the moment anyway.
It's just fireworks because we're close to the 4th of July.
Might play WoW later, but not today.
But yeah, you're going to hear fireworks tonight, probably.
Yeah.
And for those of you in the States, since we're not going to record for another whole week, happy Independence Day.
Yeah, we support it. Like I said,
just be mindful. Be careful.
Be careful. Don't do stupid shit. The ERs are busy enough.
Live. Sorry. All right. You up next or you on?
We should probably go ahead and let you go next.
Okay.
Only so that we're breaking up slave stories.
No, my bad.
Just saying.
Watch this probably got
Joe's like, well, I hate to burst your bubble here,
Mine
but
doesn't have slaves in it.
all right. Then you can go next.
But since I already put on my glasses, here we go. All right. So I'm doing my story on a corpse light. And I did say
Corpse light.
Corpse light.
Ooh, this is interesting.
I definitely found this interesting. So it's very few people know one of Delaware's most popular state parks is hiding a terrifying dark secret. For centuries, lighthouses have given ships, have given ships a beacon of light to guide them home. Jagged rocks, surging waves, violent storms, and whistling winds all lurk off the coast, like sirens ready to lure sailors to their death. But what if a strange corpse light in Delaware are calling ships to the shore when it isn't safe? What if dangerous spirits have other plans for our adventurous sailors? And what if events from our past are literally coming back to haunt us? Such may be the case in Delaware's Cape Hannelopen State Park. So, mine didn't involve slaves, but it did involve Native Americans. So close. So, Native American storytellers tell a tragic tale of an event that happened over 350 years ago. It is said strange lines haunt the point to this day because British soldiers raided a wedding ceremony being held by a native tribe. Nearly all of the tribe was killed, and the remaining tribal members cursed the land with a drum of stone, which signals death to all white men. Because back then they didn't know they were from Europe. So they just saw the color and was like, hey, death to all. Or bad weather witch, which first reading that I replaced the W with the B, so it came off differently now.
Yeah.
All right. Over the years, hundreds of sightings and strange events happen at the haunted Cape Hannelopen, and corpse lights continue to lure ships into the dark rocks of the Cape. On Christmas Day, 1655, I'm assuming this was a ship, Devonshireman and her more than 200 sailors were lost in a night until a light guided them home, or so they thought. The mysterious light they assumed was a lighthouse guiding them to safety was instead luring them to the jagged outcrop of rocks. The ship crashed in the night as the ghostly light faded away and no one survived.
Damn.
To this day, residents of Cape Hannelopen report seeing ghost ships off the horizon, and corpse lights keep claiming victims to this day. In 1798, a British ship named the De Berwick became entranced by the lights, crashed, and sank into the shark-infested waters of the Cape. And again in 1800, a ghost of a lone Indian was seen standing at the outcropping of a rock just before a barge crashed into the rocks, killing many on board. I cannot talk English tonight. Ancient shipwrecks wash ashore even to this day, and hundreds of people die in collisions off the shores of Cape Hannelopen and tragic boating accidents. This tragic past keeps coming back to haunt it. In 1980, the USS Poet was transporting grain to Port Said in Egypt. Once again, the ship was clear of Delaware Bay Captain Leroy Warren. Wow. And his crew of 33 men set course for Gibraltar. They were never seen again.
Damn.
Even Fort Miles, an old World War II installation built in U.S. Army off Cape Hannelopen, is rich with ghostly tales, strange sightings, and haunted lights. So I looked up that Indian wedding that the British soldiers raided. There's no record of it. Of course. They're not going to do that. But Native Americans do speak it. And that stone drum that they were beating, it's from all the research I did, that you don't want to hear that. That's their omen of you're dying, white boy. But no, I found this interesting because I know we've done lighthouses before, and they've always been interesting because there's a lot of danger around it. And we've talked about the hazards of being a lighthouse keeper and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But when they mentioned the Indians standing off there, that caught my curiosity. So I looked it up, and multiple sightings of that Indian have appeared every time that light has appeared.
Interesting.
And I know I reported some back in like the 1800s and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually one in 1993.
Really?
Yep. It wasn't a U.S. coast. It wasn't a naval ship or anything like that, but it was somebody just boating. And they saw a light, thought it was directing them home, and boom, crashed into the cliff.
Damn.
Wow.
Now, here's what I will say. How do sailors navigate by the light? Usually, if you see the lighthouse, stay away from it because, you're getting close to
Close
shore.
to land, right.
But most people on boats nowadays aren't naval operators. It's just every Joe Blow going out there to enjoy being on a boat. And lighthouses really aren't used a lot nowadays, like they were in the past. So you'd think...
Well, I mean, let's be fair. We have shit like GPS nowadays.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they can see the shore.
Well, that goes even further into what I'm saying. Again, you got the GPS, you got the radar, you got everything down there showing you where the shore is at. You're paying attention to a light?
Yeah. But I think that it might maybe it was just supposed to be like, hey, you're out there in the middle of the sea, you finally see that light, that means land is this way.
Right. And that's how I thought it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that light has moved.
That's crazy.
It's moved from the lighthouse over to here. It's shown over here on the cliffs, the jagged rocks sticking out of the water. Like, either these are, and I don't mean to make light of the dead, not that smart of sailors. They're like, that's weird. It's in the middle of the ocean. It shouldn't be there. I know it from over here, but let me follow this and go to my death.
Tourists are travelers, to be fair.
Right, exactly. And the land, however, is cursed.
Yeah.
So, been there. I've said it before. I believe more in the land cursing than the houses and buildings and all that. But yeah, that's my story of the unnatural light.
Well, we know how we at this table feel about curses.
Yeah.
No, they're real.
Oh, yes.
Especially old ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty much if it came from Native Americans, just kiss your ass goodbye.
That's you. Don't mess with that. But yeah, that's my story for this week. So I had a short one, quick one. Shoot, we're probably at 25 minutes?
26.
Oh, all right.
That's so close.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if Daddy can stretch this out.
Well, I mean, we'll leave enough time for discussion, which is my favorite part anyway. So.
All right. So my topic of discussion tonight does include a haunting, but it's kind of also one of my other mild obsessions.
Yeah.
This haunting has to do with a person in general.
Okay. First of all, let me correct you. Don't ever call yourself daddy again.
It's fine.
All right.
I have a 16-year-old, so
Continue.
anyway. Are either of you two familiar with the name Patty Cannon?
Yes, because I looked up the story.
Yeah, no, I have heard that name before.
So, Patty Cannon is marked down in history as America's first female serial killer.
Shout out to our girl Cena, who does serial killer.
So she was gonna shout out Patty. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well,
Shout out to our girl Patty, who's America's first serial killer.
well,
You're not going to be shouting her out when I finish telling the story.
Cena on the Wife Wednesday podcast, who they do a serial killer skit on their show.
White chicks talking about serial killers.
So,
Shocker.
nevertheless, though Caroline County is often saddled with her dreadful legacy, Patty Cannon was not actually from the area. By most accounts, she was born Martha Patricia Hanley in Canada by 1774 at the latest. Her mother and father were... Her mother and father were Montreal area prostitute and smuggler, respectively.
Wow.
So you can see where this is going to go.
So
Yes, sounds like she's living up to the lineage there.
yeah, her upbringing was phenomenal.
John Cannon, a Delaware man, and generally believed to be respectable, met Patty while traveling up north and was convinced to marry her. They returned to the Delmarva Peninsula together and started a family in the vicinity of what is now known as Reliance. Basically, this is smack dab in between Sussex, Dorchester, and Caroline County, and they all kind of share a border. So one of those tri-county areas. Back then, it should be noted, the locale was known as Johnson's Crossroads. If one frequents Reliance, then certainly the historic sign in front of the dwelling at the intersection at State Routes 577 and 392 are familiar. Its positioning and wording caused some confusion because the house situated there is not, in fact, Cannon's house. This mistake has been made repeatedly. Her domicile apparently no longer stands, and when it did, it was much closer to Seaford, Delaware. The crossroad in question, however, was the site of Johnson's Tavern, where many of Cannon's misdeeds were carried out, in addition to serving as the base of operations for her gang as they preyed upon the surrounding jurisdictions, including Caroline County and as far north as Templeville. Cannon and a handful of others, including her son-in-law Joe Johnson, the tavern operator, to borrow a modern slang phrase, were known as land pirates who dealt in mostly human plunder.
Mostly.
Mostly.
They roamed the countryside, local areas, and area wharves, kidnapping enslaved and free black slaves to sell them further south. There was a thriving underground market, especially after 1808, when Congress voted to end the importation of slaves. Patty and her affiliates often used the Nanticoke River to access Chesapeake region ports of Annapolis, Washington, D.C., and Norfolk to trade their ill-gotten cargo bound for labor-intensive cotton belt plantations. Locals were suspicious of the family's activities in the Johnson's Crossroad area for some time, but authorities were unable to apprehend Patty Cannon and her fellow conspirators for years. Perhaps it was their unwillingness to confront her directly or individually. As urban legend suggests, her stocky, powerful frame was nearly impossible to subdue in a wrestling match with either a man or a woman.
Amen.
Or it had a lot to do with the fact that the tavern building was used strategically. If Delaware law enforcement came to confront the gang, they would move to the Maryland side of the property, and vice versa. So if the Maryland side police came a knocking, they'd go to the Delaware side. This property was like literally on a state line.
Oh my good God.
Almost seems like it was on purpose.
This could only go on for so long, however. Officials wised up to the gambit and pursued a joint operation as evidence continued to mount against the Cannon-Johnson marauders.
I pray to God that was only one time it happened.
Not just for kidnapping, but for unspeakable torture and graphic deaths of numerous travelers, traders, tavern guests, slaves, children, and even their own relatives. Now, just as a little side note here, after the signing of the document in 1808 so that slaves could no longer be imported, Because of the restriction of supply, the cash values of slaves shot upwards, hitting over $1,000. Now, I did some quick math, and the value of $1,000 in 1808 is roughly $25,000 today.
Gee.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Per person. So there's that.
Nope, being good.
Yep. So Cannon finally was cornered and arrested on April 13th of 1829. Allegedly, she confessed to over 20 murders, including her own husband and child, and it is likely that she poisoned herself while awaiting her fate in jail in Georgetown, Delaware. She passed in May 11th of 1829. While some individuals would like to see this dark chapter of regional history put to rest for good, it remains a colorful subject for the academic, true crime, and horror genre enthusiasts alike. Duh, that's why I'm reading it.
Hello.
But yeah, so supposedly what had happened is that she actually poisoned herself in her cell so that she didn't have to, she was going to be put to death anyway.
No, yeah.
Right.
I'll save you the trip.
Right. It's like, I got this.
Her body was initially buried in the jail's graveyard. When that land became a parking lot in the 20th century, her skeleton, along with those of 2 other women, were exhumed and reburied in a potter's field near the new prison. In 1829, bodies were discovered on the farm property Cannon owned in Delaware by a tenant farmer who was doing some plowing there. In April of 1829, she was indicted on 4 counts of murder by a grand jury of 24 white males. So the 4 people that the farmer found while plowing his field was an infant female, a male child, an adult male, and an African-American child, boy. But that said, so supposedly it was not just 4 people. She was busted she confessed to 20. The group operated for about a decade and abducted hundreds of free black people and sold them back to slavery, thus starting the reverse Underground Railroad.
Oh.
Crazy.
Which is a problem all in itself, right? But yeah, so apparently the home was torn down, but what is thought to be the Johnson's Tavern.
Yeah.
Apparently that still stands and in fact was sold as recently as 1981 and is claimed to be super haunted. Let's see here. Last year, in an interview with the this was from the article that I found in 1981, saying that the structure was sold. So in 1980, in an interview with the Associated Press reporter, Good, who was the owner of the home at the time, had turned the house into some sort of museum, insisted that the place was haunted by spirits whom he suspected included Penny Cannon herself. Mrs. Good claimed that she would hear voices at night, all night, and the sounds of chain rattling. Good said that on one Sunday morning, one of his boys came running into his room and said that he had seen a large black man come out of his closet.
Whoa, that's terrifying.
Seen a movie like that once.
So yeah, the tavern still stands. Apparently, maybe the tavern,
Right.
probably the
Don't
tavern, is supposedly super haunted and was sold in 1981, but supposedly haunted by both slaves and, in fact, America's first female serial killer.
Huh. That's a weird
Interesting.
combination, but all right.
And how many slaves they were freed black folks that she captured and sold, right?
Yeah.
So the trick to it is supposedly the reason that it was freed black folk were because kidnapping other white people's slaves usually started a fuss.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Or
Okay.
murdering white folk and taking their slaves
Right.
usually started a fuss. Sadly, we're talking about 1808.
Yeah.
All right. So back in that time, cops kind of turned a blind eye to it. Like,
Yeah. It's
That's-
so wrong.
That's pretty fucked up, I have to say.
So yeah, they did not deal in white slaves, which were a thing back then.
Yeah.
But they had more rights.
Yeah. Yeah. Normally, white slaves back then, they would have dead.
Yeah.
Paying it all. Yeah.
So slavery, it would be a weird term when let's call it what it is. They were white slaves, but it's,
Well, yeah.
a lot of people like to throw around the term indentured servitude.
Right.
Well, yeah. By that definition of the word, people in prison are indentured servitude, all right? They're making 8 cents a day making license plates for your car.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, they're just changing them.
it's interesting enough too, though, that it is, but it isn't, because like, if you go to prison for committing a serious crime and you're there for who knows how long, it doesn't even matter, whatever your sentence is. Okay, so you're being punished for a crime that you committed. Why are you making any cents per hour?
It's rehabilitation.
So they can use it at commissary and they have actual work experience should they get released.
Well,
A lot of people that have gone for like murder and like horrendous crimes and shit like that and aren't going to get out, like there's no work programs for them.
No.
If you're in the pen, there's no work programs, but a lot of jails have like work programs.
Yeah, it's just get you rehabilitated back into normal society where you just work, or giving you that work ethic so you're just not sitting there stir crazy.
I guess I'm all right with, work programs to help rehabilitate, but I don't think that you should be making money. You're being punished.
How do you think they can afford their Newports? Do you think they like only get them when people come to visit them?
Yeah.
So
they have a commissary there.
Yeah.
So just so that so I actually have an acquaintance.
Hard talent.
I don't want to mention any names, but her husband is in prison, probably for the foreseeable future. And he doesn't make any money. All of the shit that he buys is because she puts money into the kitty.
Which I'm sure you can do too. But I know for a long time, like some of the prisons in Ohio, like literally, and it was mundane stuff. It's not, I see where you're going with it, but I don't know that I would call it like rehabilitationary or whatever word you want to use for it.
No, it's just giving them something to do.
But yeah, like they would literally like pound license plates and stuff.
Yeah. Wash clothes.
But you're being punished for committing a crime. You shouldn't.
Somebody's got to wash the sheets.
But you still shouldn't get paid for that.
Well, I don't know if they get paid for that, but they put them to work in the prison.
Well, I have no problem with that.
Not only that, but is 8 cents really getting paid?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because when you're talking about indentured servitude, it's the same exact shit. Like your family needed to eat or something, so you took a loan out from somebody and became an indentured servant so that, you could put clothes on your kids' backs.
Yeah, now we're just called managers.
Yeah, but I just think that it's so different. It's very, very different. Like, it's not okay that they got treated the way that they did because they needed money, but, you can commit some heinous crime and go to prison and get paid.
You've got too far off the rails on that side of it. Like,
she went down the rabbit hole.
Apologies.
That part is not important, all right?
It is, but it isn't. I get where you're going with it. Both of you. Sadly enough, I'm Switzerland in this group, but
usually,
yeah.
most days you are Switzerland.
Now, that said, the interesting part of Patty Cannon and her human trafficking gang, I guess we'll call it, is it was a biracial human trafficking gang.
Oh, I'm sure she didn't give a shit. Whoever could be purchased.
Yeah, like there were. Well, no, that's the thing.
No, the part of the gang.
Oh, the gang itself.
Part
was
of her
biracial.
gang was black.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So let that sink in for a second.
That's interesting.
What's that movie with Quentin Tarantino? Django Unchained. It's become bounty hunters.
That's some interesting stuff.
All jokes aside, and I don't mean to demean anything, but that's literally what they became. They became bounty hunters. Sorry, if you heard a loud thud, the dog just fell off the chair. It's mildly hilarious.
Yeah, he's cute.
But yeah, they became bounty hunters, essentially. So, and they're probably like, yeah, I'll imprison this dude. You're paying me $1,500.
Right.
Wonder if that's where Dog Devani moved in. Sorry, making light of it. My bad.
Well, to be fair, from all accounts read, she was a nasty, horrific person. Like, literally,
I'm sure she was no
throwing children in a fireplace nasty.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So either, to be fair, if you were in her circle, either you were on her side or you weren't. You probably weren't sticking around very long if you weren't.
Did they report to any of those sightings in that tavern that she haunts? Is she malicious in any way?
Did not say one way or the other.
Huh. I said an interesting theory just popped into my head.
So supposedly, like, most of the activity they get, aside from the boy claiming that he saw a large black man come out of his closet, is like EVPs. They hear change, they hear voices, like sometimes angry voices, but
Sure
there's been no like physicality to it, no like trans-Allegheny shit where it like throws stuff at you or scratches you. It's just noisy.
Well, I was just wondering if you were for all intents and purposes, he was a nasty, vile person. If you're that in life, does that transfer over to the after? Or does it switch?
It is my opinion that yes, it does. That if you're a nasty person, you're a nasty ghost.
I think it kind of. So what I would say, just my opinion on it, is I think it kind of depends on how you go out. Like if you go out while you're still being nasty and like, you know,
Shot down in a blaze.
Yeah, say she got shot down in a blaze of glory. I could see that. She was in prison and for a few months apparently, and she poisoned herself. So if there was any like, I'm not saying there was, but if there was any like remorse or something like that, like deep down that, you know, she just didn't let out, that it's possible that she wouldn't be just a malevolent entity.
I mean, I agree with that.
No, I mean, say what you want, but you show her. I mean, even though it's kind of a raw deal, if you think about it, you do horrendous acts in your life, but the last second you're like, "I'm sorry," and it's
Yeah. We all know that's a bunch of bullshit. All right, you don't get to say sorry. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you don't feel bad. Like I'm not going to take your feelings out of the equation.
Well, what I'm saying is, the time she spent in prison, did she learn from that? Did she move on? Was she like, man, I was a horrible person. I screwed up a lot. Well, I want to make amends, but I don't know how, so I'll just take myself out. That's the quickest way I can think about doing it.
Those are the questions that we don't have answers to, right?
I know that, but unless you ghost hunters in Delaware will ask that for us.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, go hit up the tavern.
Yeah. I spoke before about certain triggers may bring residual hauntings out. Try it, find out. I mean, I'm curious because I'll come up with the ideas, but you let me know.
So all of the stories that I heard regarding like the hauntings and stuff in the place, they were from a news article that was from the family that lived there. So to the best of my knowledge, I haven't found that this place has actually been investigated before. But to the best of my knowledge, there's a big sign out front and the Historic Society owns it now. So get in good with the right people and you might be the first one to...
Historical societies do tend to be able to be swayed.
From what I know of historical societies, they're just looking for anything. So,
Dan, it's a slow burn, guys. You can't just be in there and be like, I want to go to the place. Like, you just make friends with people that work there.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. Like, that would actually be pretty cool to hunt that.
Ask real nice, maybe make a donation.
Huh.
I mean, let's be honest. Our buddy Ken, friends with most of the historic societies up towards, like, Peninsula area. Yeah. That's how we've gotten into a lot of places. Initially, like 20 years ago when we got into some places that probably had no business being in. It's because dude worked with these guys for like 5 years, knew them, was friends with them, got us in.
The good old days.
Oh, the good old days.
Where time didn't pass by so quickly.
Right.
But no, interesting story. No, I did actually see that when I was doing a little bit more research after I picked my story. I was like, oh, that'd be a cool one, but I'll let the listeners know in on a little secret. Sometimes me and Alex pick the same stories.
I think frequently we're real close.
Yeah, we're at least on the same page with that. It's kind of weird. So yeah, we kind of have to talk to each other, be like, hey, did you pick this week? As a matter of fact, I asked him if he had a story this week, and I was like, what'd you do? And he was like, what'd you do? So
I had a backup story, all right? So I was between this one and the witch's tree.
Yeah, I saw that one too, yeah.
Baba Yaga guy, you know. But I was like, there's a lot more to talk about with this one.
Well, and see, that's the thing. I feel like there's more to talk about in like stuff like that than just someone passed away in the building.
Right.
Like, if it has history to it, and Teresa, I know you've said this plenty of times, if it has history to it, more likely it's haunted.
That's where she nerds out. It's the history part. So
yeah.
Oh, she just doesn't nerd out. She fangirls out.
Yeah, and goes a little stupid.
Like, she goes straight up quiet. You can tell she's looking at the computer screen because she's squinting.
So yeah, what I would say is, all in all, what I've learned from reading all of this story is not much has changed in the last 200 to 300 years. I don't mean the slavery part. I mean
that's changed quite a bit.
That's changed quite a bit. I'm at the part where like this chick had a shitty upbringing. Her mom was a prostitute and her dad was a smuggler.
You don't really get a lot of chances to break out of that.
Right.
Yeah, I
Your
agree.
guidance counselor.
Apples sometimes doesn't feel far from the tree. And how many times do you watch these serial killer documentaries nowadays and you're like, yup, we knew that kid was fucked up.
Yeah, no,
That kid was beat as a kid.
you're getting into a sensitive subject with me. Not sensitive as the way I'm going to get mad, but sensitive like this is in my wheelhouse. I'm not totally sold on the whole upbringing determines who you are because I've met plenty of people who had shitty upbringings and made the best of it.
Right.
I'm
Sometimes
not
you're
saying it doesn't happen.
I mean,
Yes.
you have two options really when your upbringing's like that, right? You either go with it and this is the person you become, or you're like, I am definitely going to make it a point to be the exact opposite of this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll never allow myself to.
I will make this so that I am not like that ever.
Right. And to me, that's the better attitude to have because why wouldn't you want to have a better life for yourself? Why wouldn't you want to do something other than just that? Like be something else.
I mean, but you also get into specifically the topic of serial killers. These folks had some pretty serious underlying
The mental issues there.
psychological
Yeah.
conditions.
Well,
Anyhow,
them aside.
right?
I'm talking about normal Joe Blood.
Who just is an
I've
asshole.
always taken offense to that.
It's
So now
hard
you
to
said it.
it's hard to tell with like the new age ones because like I don't really understand how they grew. You know, so like back when we were kids, like pre-2000s, right?
Yeah.
Like mental health wasn't a thing.
No, somebody mentioned mental health back then. We looked at them like they were stupid.
It was perfectly acceptable for your parents to beat the shit out of you.
Yeah.
To an extent.
No, I know what you mean by it. And just to clarify, since we're on a podcast, like when we say beat the shit out of you, remember paddling. Like,
Yes, parents were allowed to paddle.
I mean,
their
a
children.
whopping with a belt was not
Yeah.
a big idea.
No, that wasn't. That was just like, oh, you screwed up, huh?
Right.
You got the twitch? What'd you do?
Yeah. We had friends' parents giving us the switch. All right. And our parents were cool with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that happened one time. My dad's like, what'd he do?
Right?
Really? You're not even going to get my back? Which, again, because.
Takes a village, right?
It's
Yes.
so true.
But it kind of also formulates 50-50. It also formulates in a young person's mind. One, either, okay, I screwed up. I'm not going to do that anymore because now I'm going to get it from the entire freaking block. Or two, going with what you said. I'm not going to be like this. And now you get this generation of parents like, I'm not going to paddle my kids. So it's 50-50. You can go either way with either or. But I'm sorry, beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a very
Reason-
fine line
reason-
there, right?
Reason, yes. Sorry, that has nothing to do with the paranormal. We're just talking about serial killers right now. But
Yeah. As you can see, my topic has derailed the conversation. It's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I don't care.
no, I mean,
It's a good time.
you can actually put a poll up if you want, but I actually think the listeners kind of enjoy listening to us ramble on for the most part because they're like, these guys are dumb, or they're like, man, never thought of it that way. Tell us what you think.
And let's be honest,
Yeah.
98 times out of 100, like our rambles are ghostly rambles, all right?
Yeah.
This one just happened to be a weirdly different topic that kind of plays in, but
Yeah, we switched in the roundtable with that. So apologies, guys.
We just go haywire every now and then.
But no, Delaware's got some interesting paranormal background.
yeah, there was still a lot of other stuff to be explored too.
Oh,
Just
yeah. And it's old hauntings too. It's not like this is old America.
I mean, it's the first state.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that. Throwing in Tiger. But yeah, this is old hauntings. So I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. So yeah.
Agreed. Delaware was fun.
Good times.
Yeah.
Thank you, Delaware.
Yeah. For me, it was either look up stuff on Delaware or deal with housing development stuff. And I'm like, no, Delaware.
Yeah, we're gonna look at Delaware today. Mm-hmm.
Had enough of that.
Understood.
So yeah. Where are we going next week?
Yeah, good call.
So I want to propose two options for next week. Only because I was thinking about it like this morning and yesterday morning for some reason, and I, for some reason, just couldn't get it out of my head.
Okay.
I want to give something back to the listeners. Clearly, it seems like they're enjoying the state-by-state journey.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think this is what we should do. I think we should do another state next week and save the other option for the following week so that we have the proper time to be able to put into it. So the other idea I had was literally, I just want to hear the most terrifying fucking ghost story that you can find.
Okay.
Like the worst of the worst. And I don't mean some fucking Trans-Allegheny bullshit. Like, what is the worst haunting you've ever were able to find?
Right. Or we could even go personal experience.
Either or. But I just want to hit an in-depth haunting.
Okay.
Like, hit it hard. What scares you?
Spiders.
True. That's fine.
Paranormal related, I'm not scared by much. So, yeah, so spiders for me, because that would be the worst, is a building haunted by spiders.
Yes, the building is haunted by spiders.
So, nevertheless, staying in the same area, and thanks to my D8, which is how many states we have left, next week, we travel to yet another weird New England little tiny state, Connecticut.
A haunting in Connecticut.
No. All right. Connecticut should be entertaining at least.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the little New England states, 13 colonies in general, I think. There's just so much history. And again, with history, you have hauntings.
No, that was the original premise of this, was we were just going to do the 13 colonies.
And then we went haywire.
So we're like,
fuck it, all the states, we got this.
Yeah. But I've enjoyed the states. I do. I mean, it's come up to the finale of them. So kind of getting that lethargic push to the end. But no, I've enjoyed it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like when you get to the last week of your diet, you know there's a milkshake on the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, man, I love the states, but like there's this shit that I really want to talk about.
right. Nah, sounds good to me.
I dig it.
So next week, Connecticut. The following week, the scariest ghost story you can find.
I love it. And in the meantime, if you have anything you'd like to say to us, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn at No Lights Paranormal or on X at No Lights Para. You could find us on Facebook at No Lights Paranormal or No Lights Paranormal at gmail.com. And again, for our foreign listeners, send me an email. I want to know who you are. I want to know where you're from. I want to know what you like about the episodes and what you'd like us to talk about next.
Yeah,
and
give us something from your state.
Yeah, let's hear your stories.
Country.
Super interesting. So yeah, reach out to us, guys.
Delaware, great time. See you next week in Connecticut. And remember, don't fuck with the Baba Yaga.
Get bounty hunted.
Love you.